When I turned 18, my family kicked me out on my birthday. Despite years of hard work to turn my life around, they returned to try and take everything from me. I hadn't even finished high school when my parents and golden child brother showed me the door. Couch surfing was a better option than living with them. They didn't bother to attend my high school graduation, and they never reached out afterward. Life became extremely challenging. Being homeless made finding and keeping a job nearly impossible. Without stable employment, finding a place to live was equally tough. My parents never once contacted me during this time. There were moments when I was tempted to beg for their forgiveness, but I held my ground. Years later, I managed to secure a retail job and worked tirelessly to afford a condo. Life seemed to be on an upward trend for a while, though I couldn't save much. Having my own place, even shared with someone else, felt like a victory compared to homelessness. Then, everything crumbled again with the onset of the 2020 pandemic. I lost my job and couldn't renew the lease on my condo. My roommate faced the same fate, and we couldn't afford the place on unemployment benefits. As the lease expired, my roommate moved in with relatives, and I had to sell almost everything I owned to avoid homelessness. Fortunately, I had bought a truck years earlier because I've always loved trucks. I found a $1,000 camper in good condition and mounted it on my truck, intending it to be a temporary solution. But unexpectedly, I ended up living in that camper longer than I ever imagined. Originally, I had hoped to live in the camper at my parents' house, but circumstances forced me to adapt elsewhere. After my brother and his family rejected my request to park my camper beside their house, citing a full house and demanding rent equivalent to a local apartment, I was left without options, jobless and trying to stretch my unemployment money until I found work. Their refusal hit hard. My parents echoed the rejection, labeling my camper an eyesore and telling me to leave. Even my sister-in-law found amusement in my situation, mocking me as a homeless bum alongside my brother. With no agreement in sight, I parked my truck camper in a store parking lot for the night, fearing for my safety. I had no other relatives nearby with suitable accommodations. Most lived in apartments or were too far away. I was attached to my area and didn't want to leave. I redirected my mail to a friend's apartment to maintain some normalcy. Finding a stable parking spot was a challenge amidst hostility from various quarters, including encounters with individuals claiming to represent non-existent HOAs. I resorted to using wand extension cords to discreetly tap into outdoor outlets for electricity to keep my camper running. It wasn't ideal, but necessary to power essentials like my refrigerator and recharge my phone with a small solar power bank. Living a nomadic life in my camper meant navigating through various challenges, from dealing with unsavory characters to finding basic amenities like public bathrooms. Months passed in this precarious state until I finally secured a job in a neighboring city, moving away from retail to something more stable. Despite still receiving unemployment benefits, I was determined to regain stability and move past this difficult chapter. When my family kicked me out on my birthday, I struggled for years to get back on my feet. Just as I was finding stability, they returned, trying to take everything away. I was only 18, still in high school, when my parents and golden child brother kicked me out without even showing up for my graduation. Life was tough. Being homeless made finding a job and a place to live nearly impossible. My parents never reached out, and though tempted, I resisted begging for their forgiveness. Years later, I landed a retail job and worked tirelessly to rent a condo, living with a roommate to make ends meet. Life seemed to be improving until the 2020 pandemic hit hard. I lost my job and couldn't afford the condo anymore. Selling most of my belongings, I moved into a camper I had bought earlier, intending it as a temporary solution. I parked near my brother's house, hoping to stay there temporarily, but they demanded rent I couldn't afford. Jobless and saving what I could from unemployment, I parked in store lots, facing challenges from hostile encounters to using extension cords for electricity. Months passed until I found a job in a neighboring city, living in my camper at the back of the company lot. My boss allowed it, appreciating my availability and even letting me use the building's facilities. Eventually, I saved enough to buy a manufactured home nearby. After settling in, I shared my joy on social media, which led to an unexpected visit from my family. They barged in, making themselves at home, suggesting I let my brother move in because of my extra space. It became clear they were eyeing my home for their own convenience, which infuriated me. It sounds like you've been through an incredibly challenging and frustrating experience with your family, especially concerning your brother Dan and his wife. It's clear you've stood your ground firmly in protecting your own boundaries and property rights. Despite immense pressure and manipulation from your parents and siblings, your decision to document everything and involve the police was smart and likely saved you from even more difficult legal battles. It's unfortunate that your family's behavior escalated to such extremes, but it's commendable that you held your ground and maintained your principles throughout. Moving forward, it seems you've garnered significant support from other family members who recognize the injustice of the situation. Cutting off toxic relationships, even with family, can be necessary for your own well-being and peace of mind. If there's anything specific you'd like advice on, or if you just need to talk about how to cope with the aftermath of such a tumultuous family conflict, feel free to let me know.